Hey, New Hope family, it's Pastor Matt with your devotional thought for today. Now, today I've chosen a passage out of Matthew chapter 26, which actually describes his prayer in the Garden of Gethsemane and his interactions with the select three of his disciples that join him there while he's praying. And I wanted to share this because this is Maundy Thursday, which is a very significant day in the church calendar as we consider it is the Thursday before Good Friday and ultimately before Christ's resurrection on Sunday. But there were a number of events that took place on Maundy Thursday. And by the way, the reason it's called Maundy Thursday is because that word Maundy is derived from the Latin word for mandate or command. And it all comes from the idea of Jesus giving that new command in the aftermath of washing his disciples' feet, the new command that he gives to them. And so on this day, we call it Maundy Thursday because of the command that our Lord had given to his disciples. But this is specifically, this passage that I'm going to share with you now is, again, a portion of what took place on that historical Maundy Thursday, the first Maundy Thursday to ever take place, that day where he gave that commandment to his disciples. And this actually happened after that commandment would have been given. And this is Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, and here's what the text says. Then Jesus went with them to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." And taking with him Peter and the two sons of Zebedee, he began to be sorrowful and troubled. Then he said to them, "My soul is very sorrowful, even to death. Remain here and watch with me." And going a little farther, he fell on his face and prayed, saying, "My Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as you will." And he came to the disciples and found them sleeping. And he said to Peter, "So could you not watch with me 1 hour? Watch and pray that you may not enter into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak." Again, for the second time, he went away and prayed, "My Father, if this cannot pass unless I drink it, your will be done." And again, he came and found them sleeping, for their eyes were heavy. So leaving them again, he went away and prayed for the third time, saying the same words again. Then he came to the disciples and said to them, "Sleep and take your rest later on. See, the hour is at hand, and the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand." I wanted to share this passage, as I mentioned, because it was something that actually took place on Maundy Thursday. But beyond that, as we look at the interaction that our Lord has with his disciples, I think there are a few great insights that we can learn from him here. First of all, consider the three prayers that our Lord prays. As we look at these prayers, we can learn how to also resign our will to the will of the Father, because that's what Jesus does here. He demonstrates for us very tangibly the idea of resigning his will into the will of the Father's. He prays fervently to the Father, "If possible, may this cup pass." And he says, "If there's no other way, then let your will be done and not my own." And I think that is something we can absolutely learn from him in this when it comes to our prayer life. If we're faced with circumstances that scare us or that we just don't want to step into, that we are dreading, or we're in the midst of a trial, it is not wrong to pray for the Lord to deliver us. In fact, following what Jesus does here, we could very well do that very thing. We should very well do that thing. "Lord, if possible, deliver us out of this." But ultimately, if there's no other way, if you have something that you want to accomplish through me in this circumstance, then I want to be willing to submit to your will over my own. And would you bring my will to a place where I desire your will over what I want, over my own comforts, over my own ideas of what's best for me. Secondly, we see our Lord go before his disciples who had joined him, who'd fallen asleep. And he makes this statement, and I want to read it to you so that we get it right here. "Watch and pray that you may not enter into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak." We need to watch and pray that we might not enter into temptation. Our spirit is willing, as he says here, but our flesh is going to be weak, and our flesh will continue to lead us down paths of destruction if we don't walk by that spirit. And finally, we see at the very end of this, he knew the will of the Father, and this was his will, so he was going to obediently step out into that. So not only does he resign that in his prayer life, does he resign his will to the Father's, but even in actionable steps, he follows up with obedience to the command of the Father and willfully walks into what he knows is going to be brutal to endure, but he will do it for the sake of glorifying the Father and ultimately to demonstrate his great love for us.